Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our virtual event celebrating Women History Month. This month serves as a reminder of the countless contribution women have made throughout history, shaping our societies and champion causes of equality and justice. In 2024, Women History Month take on added significance as we reflect on the theme of inclusion, highlighting women's pivotal role in creating a welcoming environment for refugees worldwide. Today, we are honored to have an esteemed panel of women who exemplify this theme through their leadership in refugee welcoming initiatives. Their dedication to fostering inclusivities and compassion underscore the true spirit of Women History Month and serves as a beacon of hope for displaced population seeking refuge and support. And before we start with our panelists today, I do want to welcome my teammate Kit, who could really present to us some of our numbers on how women have been leading the work around Welcome Corps. So Kit, welcome, and let's start with some good statistics to celebrate here.
Okay, thank you so much, Besma. It's really good to be here. My name is Kit O'Connor. I get to play with our case management system, who, if you know me, know that I cannot be in any meeting without mentioning her name is Doris, and she's the one that provides us with these lovely statistics. We have had so far, working with Welcome Corps, we've had over 31,000 women who have joined a sponsor group so far. Of those, 46% of all sponsors identify as women. And I actually want to flag this for a second, because the term identify as women is important here. Me personally, I use they, them pronouns and do not identify as a woman. And in our application portal, we allow or ask people to narrow it down. You can choose man, male, female, non-binary, other, prefer not to say. So when you see 46%, it does not mean that 54%, if I do my math correctly, are men. It just means that of those, 46% have identified as women. And then this last figure, which, you know, it was 3 a.m, and I was thinking about this presentation and how it could be kind of interesting, as one does at 3 a.m. And I said, let's figure out how many group leads are women. So of all the group leads for matching, and we're only talking about for that part of our program where you can work to sponsor someone you do not know yet, 53% identify as women. And then you can see there's a heat map that my stellar colleague Gio created for us. And Minnesota is strongly represented with women sponsors. Maine is not as strongly yet, and I am from Maine. I am a statriot, and so we need to go do something about that. But anyway, I just think this is a really neat way to start a meeting. And also, let's celebrate women. Yay, women. That's all I got. Over to you, Bisma.
Thank you so much, Kit. This is really amazing statistic, and I was really excited to see how this is gonna look like. So I just saw it this morning and got more excited for this event today. Thank you again. So going back to our panelists, I want to introduce the panelists, and we can right away start with our discussion. Jackie Pilch is the program manager for the Welcome Corps at the Department of State Bureau of Population, Refugees and Migration. With extensive experience in refugee resettlement and humanitarian response, Jackie leads initiatives to empower communities and support displaced population globally. We also have Barbara Shapiro. Barbara Shapiro is a trustee of the Shapiro Foundation and a dedicated advocate for refugee rights. Her commitment to community service and her role in supporting refugee resettlement program reflect her passion for creating inclusive and supportive environment for marginalized communities. We also have Simone Bamba. Dr. Simone Bamba is an advocate for Refugee Welcoming Initiative and a participant. She is a sponsor of the Welcome Corps program. With a strong belief in the power of community support, Dr. Simone has played a vital role in welcoming refugees into her community, and we will hear more about her story, demonstrating the importance of empathy and solidarity. Malia, close friend, Malia Carson is a U.S. Army veteran, co-founder of Sister of Service, and a leader in refugee empowerment. Through her military experience and her work with Sister of Service, Malia is dedicated to providing meaningful opportunities for refugees to thrive in their new home. So I really want to start first. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to connect with you today and hear your stories. And before we start into the question and the discussion, I want to hear from each one of you about your journey and what took you to really come here with us today to celebrate Women of Welcome Corps. So we're going to start with Jackie. Jackie, if you can tell us about your journey.
Thanks so much, Basma. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to the Community Sponsorship Hub for convening this extraordinary group of women. I feel really privileged to be speaking among you all today. I think I will actually start by giving like a 1 minute or less overview of the Welcome Corps, just in case anyone has joined us who isn't really familiar with the program. And then I will happily dive into my own background and how I got involved in this. The Welcome Corps is a relatively new, about 1-year-old program through the Department of State in collaboration with a consortium of partner organizations, including the Community Sponsorship Hub, which leads the consortium. The program enables Americans working in groups of 5 to come together and form private sponsor groups to directly support the resettlement of refugees who are coming to the United States through our United States Refugee Admissions Program. So the sponsor groups come together. It has to be 5 American adults from the same community, and they effectively play the same role in receiving and supporting refugees as our network of professional resettlement agencies. So they deliver on core sponsorship services to the refugees, and they really help them find their footing and develop a social network and integrate into their new communities in the United States. And so I'm happy to take questions about how the program works as we go on, but it's really about empowering everyday Americans to play this really critical role in supporting refugees. And I think, getting better enmeshed in their own communities as well. So that is the Welcome Corps. We just had our first birthday. I would encourage you to go to welcomecorps.org to learn more about how you can participate directly in the Welcome Corps as a sponsor. But today I think we're here to tell you about how we all got involved. So I will transition into telling you about my own background. I have been working in refugee resettlement for the better part of the last 20 years. I got started when I was studying abroad during college and working in some refugee communities in South Africa and Kenya. And then I came back to Washington, D.C., where I was at American University, and I got an internship with a local resettlement agency, which unfortunately is no longer here in the city, but I had worked with a Catholic Charities affiliate in Washington, D.C. As a college student. And then from there, I moved to Ghana when I graduated, and I worked as a caseworker at one of our resettlement support centers overseas because I really wanted to stay engaged in this work, but I had been studying international relations. I wanted to do something international. So I moved to Ghana, and I spent a few years there working throughout West and Central Africa as a caseworker for our resettlement program. I came back to DC, fast forward a couple of years, I went to grad school. I went to work in an immigration law firm because I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I changed my mind when I worked in an immigration firm. And then I went to grad school at the Fletcher School at Tufts University. And I had an opportunity to do an internship with the Department of State while I was in grad school. So I came back to Washington and I interned in the Refugee Bureau in the same office where I work now, many years later. And that kind of gave me the itch to get into policy work. But before that, I went to work, and sorry, I'm kind of, this is probably too much detail, but the big picture here is that I've worked in many different pieces of the resettlement ecosystem, from domestic to overseas. I went on to become a refugee officer with the Department of Homeland Security, adjudicating refugee cases overseas, and I did that for a few years. I also worked for UNHCR as a protection officer, and then eventually I made my way back to the Department of State to work on our policy and programming. I did a few other things. And then at the beginning of the Biden-Harris administration, I went to the National Security Council to serve as the director for refugee policy at the NSC for a couple of years, which was really just a humbling and extraordinary opportunity. We had many crises unfold that no one anticipated, as that's how they go. We had the fall of Kabul, we had Russia's invasion of Ukraine, many extraordinary events that we had to respond to. And then coming out of my 2-year tenure at the NSC, there was honestly nothing I wanted to work on more than the Welcome Corps. We had launched the program while I was at the NSC, and I was so inspired by this initiative that literally, like, I took a look at all the various things I could do from there, and the one thing I wanted to work on most of all was the Welcome Corps. So here I am back at the Department of State in the Refugee Bureau, serving as the program manager for the Welcome Corps. Thank you, Basma. I'll hand it back to you.
Jackie, and I encourage also everyone who is joining us today to share your stories in the chat and what's really brought you here today. Barbara, can you tell us more about your journey and what brought you here today with us as women of Welcome Corps?
Thank you so much, Basma. And hi, everyone. Echoing what Jackie said, I'm honored to be here and grateful to Welcome Corps for all that you do and for inviting me to join today. My family foundation focuses on global refugee sponsorship and supporting the world's most vulnerable populations. My husband, Ed, has been instrumental in launching many of the US sponsorship programs, including Welcome Corps, while I'm the feet on the ground, welcoming refugees into our community. I like to say he thinks globally and I act locally. In 2017, during the crisis in Syria, I was part of the Syrian refugee resettlement program that successfully welcomed 8 Syrian families to the greater Boston community. My synagogue sponsored 2 of those families, and I was integrally involved, from working as a core team member that helped establish employment, education, healthcare, and more, to driving to appointments and watching children. It's hard to describe how gratifying this experience was. Sadly, as we all know, and as Jackie mentioned, there was no shortage of crises in the years that followed. We welcomed Afghan refugees in 2021, and then Ukrainian refugees in 2022. And now we support refugees from Haiti and Venezuela. It's been busy. Welcoming refugees is joyful, challenging, amazing, frustrating, you name it. It's hard to imagine what refugees experience when their culture meets ours. It's certainly not easy, but I've seen firsthand that having the warm support of sponsors and a community is transformational. At the end of the day, it's been nothing short of magical for me. I became and remain quite close to one of the Syrian families that we welcomed at the start. They're like my second family, and we've shared holidays together, gone apple picking, celebrated wiggly teeth and birthdays. Their young children FaceTime with my children at college every chance they get. Last week alone, we attended a wonderful iftar celebration to welcome the end of the Ramadan fast. The family's grown by 2 children since arriving in the US, and I had the immense honor of being in the delivery room when Hayat was born in 2018 and when Sarah arrived just 5 months ago. The mother of this family is the oldest of 8 and left her parents and siblings behind in Jordan when she came to the US with her young family. Over the years, Rakans would ask, when can we bring my family here? What a thrill when Welcome Corps was officially launched, creating the opportunity to name the refugee you sponsor. I'm beyond happy to share that I'm now the lead sponsor on an application we submitted through Welcome Corps in January for Rakan's mother and 2 youngest siblings to come to the US. The application process was straightforward, and Welcome Corps provided support and training. We've now assembled 2 additional teams that will sponsor 2 of Rakan's siblings and their families. And Rakan's, a woman, a young mother who arrived here as a refugee back in 2017 and is now a proud US citizen, is the lead sponsor on one of the teams. Thanks so much. Back to you, Basma.
So much, Barbara. This is really exciting. And I love how sponsors always end up becoming friends, mentor, and family. And I think that's what the beauty of sponsorship. We create communities forever. Also, in the chat, please keep it coming. I love the stories, Annie and Jill. Please come. All of these stories are amazing, and really continue to share as we are celebrating the women's on the screen today, but we want to celebrate you as well. Malia. So we heard from Barbara all of the work that's been happening in the past couple of years with Afghans and Ukrainians, and you were part of it. So would love to hear about your journey and what's brought you here today.
Thanks so much, Basma, and hello everyone who's joined the call. It's an honor to be here and to get to share my story and the story of the women that I work with. So back in 2019, I had an opportunity to deploy to Afghanistan as a female to specifically work with women and children. And in that time, I had the opportunity to train Afghan women in the special operations. And so I was able to closely bond with these women, being a soldier myself and working alongside them. And they're the most incredible heroes that you can ever imagine, these 90-pound women that throw on kit and they're out there doing raids across Afghanistan. And they're just so inspirational. And so that was definitely an instrumental moment in my life to get to work alongside them. So you can only imagine when Kabul started falling and the Afghans had to flee, these women were at the top of the Taliban hit list. So they were actively being targeted and knew they needed to do something to bring themselves and their families to safety. So these women, called the Female Tactical Platoon, reached out to the women that had worked alongside them in the past. And we worked together to find a plan to bring them out of Afghanistan into the United States. And the evac was a chaotic event. I know many of you probably watched it alongside the news and saw the photos of the chaos at the gates of Kabul. But we knew in that moment that the evacuation was just the sprint and resettlement was going to be a marathon, and that we worked alongside these women and became so closely bonded to them in Afghanistan that we couldn't leave them alone once they came to the United States and had to completely start over with new lives. They had really reached the peak of their career potential working in the special operations as Afghan women, and now had to start over. So that was a shock to all of us, and we knew we needed to be beside them along it. So myself and many of the fellow veterans that had worked alongside me started an organization alongside the leadership of these female Afghan women called Sisters of Service. And alongside the Pentagon Foundation, we were able to bring in a large amount of donations and really support them financially initially, but as well with just sisterhood and mentorship. And we have continued to do that across the past 2 years. We didn't know what we were doing. I didn't have an extensive background in resettlement and refugees and law and any of it. But myself and many veterans stepped up to help these women along the way, really serve beside them and just learn how we could meet them to, again, reach their potential in the United States. And so today, we are in the process of finally eventually becoming a nonprofit. We didn't know how long this work was going to endure, and we're excited to have 3 pillars now, one of which is sisterhood, and that is continuing to match the 42 women in their family with a one-to-one mentorship program. Many of the mentors are on the call today, and I appreciate you guys joining, to include my parents and my sister. Mary Helen, I saw you. Manaz is the commander of the Afghan female unit, is on the call today as well. So that is something we will continue. Service, finding these women meaningful employment and opportunities to serve in the United States continues to be a priority, and that's something I'll speak to a little bit later. And finally, inspire. We know the capability of these women to inspire women, peace and security, inspire refugee resettlement, just so many topics their stories can reach to people. So finding opportunities such as reunions. Basma was actually able to attend one of our reunions in Texas, where we worked with Command Purpose and the artist Jen Hassan to create art about their stories. And currently, our biggest focus is securing green cards, because many of the women actually want to join the U.S. military, which is incredible. And we hope to support that pathway. So happy to answer further questions along the way, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
I was part of the retreat or reunion, and it was such a beautiful space to be with, and sharing the stories and being grounded in the stories of all of the women there. Thank you so much, Malia, for sharing, and keep it coming in the chat. I love all of the shout out and the stories that I am reading. Dr. Simone, would love to hear about your journey. I had the honor to meet Dr. Simone last couple of months in her area, in the Boston surrounding area, and loved seeing how much the community there adore her and see her as a hero in that space. So giving it to you to hear about your journey.
Oh, thank you, Basma, for inviting me. It's truly an honor, and I'm glad to be part of this panel. And thank you for mentioning Boston. I'm located in Boston, Massachusetts, from Mission Maranatha. It is a nonprofit faith-based group. And I've been with my husband in Boston for the past 24 years. But before that, I was a former missionary in West Africa and Haiti. But for the past 24 years, we're here in Boston. But my activities is a pastor, and I assist him in the work. But my main activities consist in practically welcoming people referred to us, whether it is as refugees or people that we know, they refer them to us, and to resettle them, to welcome them in the communities. So that's what we've been doing for the past 24 years. And last year, when I heard about the Welcome Corps program, I jumped on that opportunity and I spontaneously, embraced that vision, because I felt like it was almost what we were doing. And then here is the government come with this program. So automatically embrace that program, and then, and get involved in an information session to know more about it. Went back to my church, shared the vision, the dream with some people, and 6 of them joined me. And here I started my wonderful journey with putting the application, as you know, and by July 26th, we welcome Ibrahim in our community. Ibrahim is a Muslim, and we've learned so much with him, but the journey went practically smoothly, although we had some challenges, but it went well. In 1 month, Ibrahim was able to get all his benefits from July to August. And by September, he was already working in through FedEx. Jewish Vocational Services help him, find his first job at FedEx. And then on his own, he was able to find his own housing, move in his own community. And with the Somalian Development Center, he was able to connect with his community and find some support that he needed also. So now it's after 7 months. Ibrahim is self-sufficient, independent with everything, even with banking. He's doing himself his own interview after receiving coaching from me and from GVS. It couldn't be sweeter than that. Yes, we had some challenges, in the road, but we overcame that. And after 7 months, Ibrahim is part of our family. We check with each other at least 3 times a week, and great events in the church, he comes and I go to him also in his community. He gave me a large family, the Somalian family. We are real family, and we really connected with each other. So this is my journey with a first sponsor, and I'm looking forward to sponsor with matching and eventually naming and doing even more as the Lord guide me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simone. Yes, I heard that you're already planning your next sponsorship journey. So it's really exciting to see how much really resonate the first experience and how you are jumping right away on it. And yes, I saw Dr. Simone and Ibrahim as really friends, and you have been mentors to Ibrahim, and I have seen the love of the Somalian community to all of you. So you have actually created a whole tribe for Ibrahim. I also want to mention that yes, it's Ramadan, so Ramadan Mubarak to everyone who is celebrating it, and keep the stories coming and all of the amazing things in the chat. I actually prepared so many questions, so I have actually a hard time picking what question I should go with, and I don't think we will be able to go over all of them. So I will start with Jackie, and Jackie, feel free to really not stick with the question. You can talk about anything that comes to your mind in this moment. But really, I want to hear more from you. Your experience span across various roles with government agencies and international organizations. How has this diverse background shaped your approach to leading refugee private sponsorship initiative with the Welcome Corps? You mentioned in the beginning about your introduction and Welcome Corps, what really stood up to you. Can you tell us more about the why? And if you want to talk further and give more introduction about the Welcome Corps, you can do that too.
Thanks, Basma. Why don't we see, let's see at the end if there are questions specifically about how the Welcome Corps works, but I'll talk a little bit about sorry, I have my answer in my mind, but I actually forget how you frame the question. But what led me to the Welcome Corps? I have worked, as I said before, like really across the whole ecosystem of resettlement and also of humanitarian response overseas, which I didn't really get into before. But what is so appealing to me about the Welcome Corps, well, and that has given me a holistic perspective of how this works. From operations to foreign policy to working with people. I mean, all of the work that we do, ultimately, it just comes down to being able to work with people from different backgrounds and different perspectives who come at things from different approaches. But I think I've been able to sort of put that all together and have a vision for the Welcome Corps, just pulling on all those pieces from previous experience. The reason why I really wanted to work on the Welcome Corps and what I think is so extraordinary about this program is that it marries up our desire and our altruistic motivations to help people and to provide these opportunities for refugees, because it significantly expands or will expand our country's capacity to welcome more refugees. But it is also so much about creating opportunities for Americans to get involved in this work on a really personal level, and in interacting with refugees, but also in interacting with their sponsor group and their own community. And I just think at this point in time where we're at in this country, where immigration has become so divisive, and looking back on the resettlement program, which has for decades and decades been a nonpartisan, bipartisan, whatever you want to call it, an effort that had broad support across this country, and things have changed. And I think this is a way to come back to our roots, and for people to engage with their neighbors who they don't necessarily talk to on a day-to-day basis, and engage with people who are not exactly like them. But this work brings people together, and that is the best part of it for me. And I think that can have a ripple effect. It's accessible for people, whether they're in big cities or rural areas, however they identify politically, from all faiths. I mean, you heard this beautiful story from Dr. Simone about who comes from a missionary background, working with Ibrahim, a Muslim, bringing together different faith communities. And she mentioned how this is growing, her own circle, her own tribe. And so this is a program that brings people together. And I think that that's what we all need right now. And that for me is the best part of being able to work on this program. So I will leave it at that.
So much, Jackie. Yes, giving opportunities to Americans to take part of sponsoring and welcoming is a really crucial. And I have seen it in the chat a couple of times of how people have been waiting for years for this opportunity to come. Thank you for sharing. I want to go to Barbara and really dig deeper. As a trustee of the Shapiro Foundation, you have played a crucial role in supporting various humanitarian causes. Could you highlight some of the most impactful project or initiative aimed at refugee assistance that the foundation has been involved in, you specifically involved in? You are muted, Barbara.
Sorry about that. Thank you. It had to happen once. Takes the edge off. There are so many impactful initiatives, but I would say there are three that really stand out. In response to President Obama's commitment to resettle 10,000 Syrians in the US in 2016, we had the opportunity to create a new co-sponsorship program with Jewish Family Service of Metro West and HIAS. This is the initiative I mentioned previously. And it was just super impactful to me personally, to my family, and to our community. Then in 2022, after Russia attacked Ukraine, we learned about Uniting for Ukraine, which was a new program that allows any American to sponsor any Ukrainian. And through our synagogue, we sponsored and welcomed 7 Ukrainian families to our community. Now, we have the opportunity to follow on to all of that, all that we've done to date, really, with the launch of Welcome Corps, which, as everyone is saying, and we can just all feel, opens doors and will reunite families who have been long separated.
So much, Barbara. And I have seen the families and how they are attached to you in the Boston event. You definitely have created also a tribe with the Syrian community in the Boston area and all over the globe. I want to go to Malia. Malia, Sister for Service aims to provide meaningful employment pathways for refugees in the U.S. Could you share some of the successful initiatives or strategies that you have implemented by the organization to facilitate job opportunities and economic empowerment for refugees, which I know that's one of your passions?
Absolutely, Basma. Thank you. I'm actually writing a dissertation on it right now. And so it's something that we're very passionate about, mostly because it's such a difficult journey to do. That's really, I think, what has sustained our work with Sisters of Service, is seeing these women go from Afghan special operators to working at Chick-fil-A. And even now, 2 years later, struggling to find meaningful employment and service that we know they have the potential to do. So myself and my team have really been studying different ways to do it. I do see Allison from React DC is on the call, and I actually want to highlight one of the initiatives her organization is doing, where they bring back Afghans or immigrants who have successfully made it far in a field and have them speak back to a group of refugees on exactly the steps and how they did it. And I think being able to make an inviting community like that, to see someone who has struggled the same struggles that you have gone through, then later succeed, is huge. And I think what was most shocking to us is how long it takes refugees that enter the country to get their feet back under them, and what a community of support can really do to help that pathway and help the mindset shift of, this isn't going to be easy at first. I might have to start at a job that I know I'm overqualified for, but while I'm doing this, I'm learning English and I'm learning the culture, and I know this is temporary. And being alongside them during like these difficult moments of waiting is something I think my team has most been able to provide, really by having that one-on-one mentorship, by having a community collective approach to it, where we do quarterly cross-cultural calls where our women will come on a call both from Afghanistan and from the US and share stories on a theme, from how to cook pizza and how to use cheese in America to how to cook bolani in Afghanistan, and just meeting and like reaching the humanity across the cultures and across the struggles, so that they can have that motivation to continue to apply for jobs. And we can help with resumes, and we can help with networking, and just follow them along their journey. And one thing that Sisters of Service is excited to announce is that we're hoping to start a military pathways program, where these women are nearing their green card status. They should be getting it, hopefully. It's a long bureaucratic process, but hopefully this summer. And so once they have their green card, they can join the U.S. military. And so Sisters of Service wants to start a mini virtual boot camp to help prep them as they join the military and reach these steps. So that's something we are very excited to launch soon.
And I actually have heard many of the women you have supported that they cannot wait for this opportunity to come. So really excited to stay connected to really hear the news when it's come to reality. Malia, thank you for sharing. Dr. Simone, you mentioned the significance of culture understanding and language support in refugee welcoming initiative, and how can communities effectively bridge culture gaps and create an inclusive environment for newcomers. Based on your own experience with Ibrahim and the Somalian community now, can you talk about really what's helped Ibrahim really emerge and integrate within the community, and what kind of resources that you were able to navigate in your city to make sure that Ibrahim is fully integrated in the area?
Thank you, Basma. Cultural understanding and language supports in the sponsorship is very important, especially for me with a background different than the one that I'm sponsored. It's very important. It was crucial for me to connect Ibrahim with a community that understand him, because his English was limited. So he needed translators to understand, important things and make important decisions. So cultural, communication, language support was evident, was very important for him. And understanding his culture also was very crucial, because as a Muslim, I could not bring him to church to worship. So I needed to be sensitive to that and then find him a mosque. Understanding also the culture about food, what they eat and they don't eat. I knew a little bit about it because my husband was a former Muslim, so I knew what to do and not to do. But it was important for me to connect him with the Somalian community, so that not only he'll feel, secure in that environment, but at the same time also be able to express himself and that people will understand him. So the support is important. Community need to research, for resources, around them, and then reach out to people to see, people that speak different language and then understand different culture. So, for example, for us as a church, we can, we speak different dialects in the church and different languages, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and so forth. If the community reach out to us, we're willing, to go as volunteer to go and help. So I think that communities need to reach out to different groups so that, together we can do a better job.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simone. So I am really inspired by all of the things I heard and all of the stories I heard, and it's clear to me that everyone can sponsor. Every one of us know how to do shopping and fill paperwork, rent a house, buy a car, and all of these things. Really, what refugees need to do when they arrive to the United States. I will say I came as a refugee myself. I navigated the system myself with community members and mentors and resettlement agencies, and now I am able to help many to come through Welcome Corps and through a really different pathway to the United States. I heard it from Malia and Barbara and Dr. Simone that everyone can do this work and it's not hard. And actually, we learn more about our own communities when we are navigating these systems for our refugees community and the newcomers. I want to have the last question really open to all of you. In terms of what kind of advice you want to give to the communities you come from, so Malia, to the veteran communities, and like what's your advice to them? There is a big opportunity this year to really welcome many more Afghans. So what kind of call to action you want to call for your community here?
Absolutely, Basma. Thank you. There was just such an incredible outpouring of support at the start of the fall of Kabul and when Afghans first started arriving in the United States. And so I would encourage veterans to, again, look at their opportunities to volunteer with resettlement organizations and the Afghans and really all refugees in your communities around you. Because on one hand, military people are probably the least qualified to offer advice on jobs and healthcare, and we just have such a different system. But on the other hand, it just takes being a human being to know that you can invite someone over for dinner and learn so much by sharing a meal. Or if you have children that are the same age, you can go to the zoo together. Just little simple things like that that showcase how to be invited in a community make all the difference. So really see ways and reach out to our organization at Sisters of Service. We have 42 women and families spread across the entire United States that would love networks into meaningful employment, support with driving lessons, just all sorts of things. Think about moving to a new place and having to start over, and all the help and ways that you can serve and learn together. And right now, as Basma mentioned, there's an incredible opportunity to sponsor Afghans that are currently hoping to come to the United States because of the persecution that is ongoing in their country. And my team is actually hoping to sponsor one of the women's families. Really, like the start of our work was largely inspired by, unfortunately, the death of one of the Afghan women, Mahjubin Hakimi, in Afghanistan. And her family's currently in Pakistan. And so we're hoping to start a sponsorship group to bring them to the United States and continue to grow our family at Sisters of Service and welcome as many refugees. And so I would inspire you to just go ahead and try to do it. You're well more equipped than you think you are.
Thank you so much, Malia, and I'm really excited for your sponsorship journey with Welcome Corps, as it's supposed to start soon. Barbara, you have been working with many service organizations, philanthropic community. What's your advice for them and really inspire them to get to work with us and sponsor more refugees?
I think that I just need to build on what Malia just said. She hit the nail on the head. There is so much opportunity, and it's big and it's small. My advice would be find or even create an opportunity and know what fills your cup. Connect with the resettlement agency and learn how you can become involved. Assemble a private sponsorship group and sponsor a refugee through Welcome Corps. Become a community volunteer. Donate goods and services. You can involve your synagogue or church or any community organization. There's truly, as you hear, no shortage of need, and really lots of ways to be involved.
Dr. Simone, any call to action that you have for the faith communities, as you have actually mobilized your faith groups to sponsor Ibrahim?
Yes, my faith-based group, but at the same, I'll continue to call them into action because I realize some of them are afraid to embark in that journey just because they're seeing it, financial commitment. But I'll continue to let them know, to tell them, Mission Maranatha is a small church. We're just building up again after COVID, and we were able, after 2 years, to come up with resources in the community to come up and sponsor one person. Now we're ready to do more. So I'll call into action to other church members and faith-based group to not be shy, to just go ahead and be open to, to reach out and do their part. Because there are so many people in churches willing to volunteer, so many youth wanting to help, transporting people, others wanting to go and be companion to other people because they want to help in a very small way. So I want to encourage each one not to consider the challenges, but to see the meaning of, this wonderful vision of that work and embrace it so that others can benefit.
And yes, you're right. I mean, there are challenges, but I will say, and barriers, but I encourage people to research. We do have some resources available for sponsors through the sponsor fund that we have created, housing solution. So if people are willing to do the work, we do have resources available for sponsors to take advantage of. Jackie, I want to end with you with a call to action to our community here.
Thanks, Basma. I think I will reiterate what we've heard from others, that anyone can do this, and that we have designed this program so that anyone, even if you have zero experience in working with refugees or immigrants, or people who don't speak English as their first language, you can do this. There, as Basma said, are many resources available to support sponsors, from one-on-one application support sessions to coaching and mentorship from organizations that will work directly with your sponsor group who have a lot of experience in resettling newcomers. We have a lot of materials online to help you get started for each specific responsibility. They can help, like resources to help you understand how to go about fundraising. So the resources are there for you. The support is there for you. I'm going to relay some advice that I heard recently from Sloan Davidson, who started the Hello Neighbor Network. Start by starting. Start by taking the first step. And I have not been a sponsor through this program. I have done similar programs, but what I hear, I have the privilege of traveling around the country, meeting with sponsors who are participating in the Welcome Corps. And without exception, what I hear from every single sponsor is that participating in this program has changed their lives for the better in ways that they never would have imagined. And so I just want to reiterate that you can do this. Start by starting. This program is for everyone, and we are here to support you and help you if you get stuck. So reach out to the Welcome Corps Consortium, contact@welcomecorps.org, and we will help you to be able to participate.
Thank you, Jackie. So we do have a couple of questions in the Q&A section. Maybe we can take a couple. If people have more questions, please add it now. And then after that, we will close for the day. I really enjoyed all of the stories I heard today, and I hope this will inspire more potential sponsors to put application today to sponsor refugees through the matching or sponsoring someone you know. The first question, Jackie, is for you, actually. Can you address how the exemption process works for Welcome Corps if times permit now?
Sure. So one of the requirements, and I didn't say this when I gave the Welcome Corps 101 at the start, but there are really two main tracks and ways that you can sponsor through the Welcome Corps. One is to be matched. A sponsor group can be matched with refugees who they do not know. And those refugees are already under consideration for U.S. resettlement, either because they've been referred by the UN Refugee Agency or they're eligible for resettlement through some other way. And so sponsors can be matched with refugees who they don't know. The sponsors can specify nationality or language or family size of those refugees based on who they're best capable of supporting. And then the second track is to sponsor someone who you know. So sponsors can apply to sponsor a refugee who they already know, who hasn't already been referred for resettlement to the United States. And they can actually make the referral, and then we will process that refugee's application overseas. There are some eligibility requirements for the refugees. They can be any nationality. They can be living almost anywhere in the world outside of their home country. So they already have to be a refugee living in a different country of where they're from than where they're from. And then there's also a requirement that those refugees have to be registered with the UN Refugee Agency or the host government as a refugee or as an asylum seeker. That helps us know that those individuals are refugees and not a different type of migrant. It also helps ensure that those refugees, if they're approved, will be able to travel to the United States, because some host countries, for example, Turkey, have exit permission requirements. So they won't actually let refugees leave if they haven't followed these procedures. And so we have a registration requirement as part of this process. But we also recognize that there are some circumstances where refugees are not able to be registered as a refugee in the country where they have fled. And that could be for various reasons, but we want to make this program available in the event that there are extraordinary circumstances that made it such that someone couldn't register. So we have an exemption process. We cannot always issue exemptions because, as I said, some host governments have their own requirements. Like Turkey it wouldn't matter if we issued an exemption in Turkey because the government still won't let refugees leave unless they've followed the government of Turkey's process. So we can't always issue exemptions, but in some cases we can. And so there's a process built into the application. When you get to the point of the application, when the sponsor reaches the point in the online application where it asks them to upload their refugee's proof of registration, they can say no. Like it says, do you have a proof of registration? Yes or no. The sponsors can say no, and then it will prompt them with directions for requesting an exemption process. And it will send them to fill out a form to explain the reasons why the refugee has not been able to be registered. And then partners of the Community Sponsorship Hub will follow up with the sponsors, either if they need additional information or if once they make a determination on whether they can approve that exemption or not. And so the exemption process is embedded within the application itself.
Jackie, one more question, and it's actually two combined for the Afghan community members. So there are questions about SIVs. What about SIVs and what's their eligibility for Welcome Corps, depending on where they are staying at the moment? And the other question is also about Afghans, talking about is Iran, Turkey, and India are not included in the list. And could you please clarify if there are still any Afghans in those countries who are unable to secure sponsorship?
Sure. For SIVs, if Afghans already have a pending SIV application and they have reached the post chief of mission stage, so they have an immigrant visa application number, the sponsors can apply to support those SIV applicants through the Welcome Corps. And what that means is that once the SIV applicant's visa is approved, instead of the US government assigning those SIVs to a resettlement agency in the United States, they will be assigned to their private sponsor group instead, and they'll be supported by their sponsors. This is tremendously helpful for the program overall because it expands our domestic capacity to welcome more SIVs. I think many of you are aware that we have some limitations on our resettlement agency capacity this year, largely due to the rising costs of housing. So our resettlement agencies are struggling to expand their own ability to welcome refugees, and private sponsors can really help us fill this gap. So if SIVs have private sponsors, that basically like opens up another slot for someone else who could be supported by a resettlement agency. So we really welcome sponsors applying on behalf of SIVs. It's also part of the application process. So when the sponsors start the online application, toward the beginning, there are fields where they're asked, does this person have an SIV application? And then they would say yes, and they would put in the SIV number, and that helps us connect the dots so that we can assign that SIV case to the private sponsors instead of a resettlement agency. To the second question on Iran, Turkey, India, I can run down the list. Just big picture, we want this program to be available in as many locations as possible, but we do have some limitations. Those limitations really fall into three buckets. We cannot process refugee cases in countries where we don't have diplomatic relations. So for example, Iran, we are unable to process any refugee applications for resettlement to the United States for refugees who are in Iran. That's not specific to the Welcome Corps. It's our US refugee admissions program globally. And so unfortunately, we cannot accept Welcome Corps applications for refugees who are in Iran. Another bucket is sometimes there are host government policies that don't allow us to operate this program. And Turkey is an example of that. The government of Turkey does not currently allow us to implement this program, but we are working really hard diplomatically behind the scenes to change that policy because we do want this program to be available for refugees in Turkey. And then the third one, India, we do accept applications for refugees in India. So that one is not excluded.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Really appreciate all of your answers to the questions we are receiving. And the last question, and Barbara, Malia, feel free, Simone, any one of you can answer this question. What unique challenges and opportunities do women encounter in leading private sponsor sponsorship program or groups for refugees, and how have these experiences shaped approaches to foster welcoming communities? Any of you can talk about this.
I mean, I will start by saying, as a woman, I've found no barriers or complications being a sponsor. You just have to learn, as you learn, cultures of newcomers, what their cultural differences are, and respect those. And so I have obviously had some close relationships with some Muslim families, and I know I'm a hugger, and I know when I show up and I start hugging everyone in the room, don't hug the husband, and my husband the same, vice versa. And so you know who to shake hands with and who not to, and it's not really a complicated thing to learn. Beyond that, I feel strong and capable and worthy as a woman to do everything I can to welcome newcomers to the U.S.
I'll jump in to just kind of shadow what Barbara said. I agree. If anything, I think having like a team of women is an asset more than a challenge. And especially, I think the Community Sponsorship Hub is so impactful because it is a community team-led thing. So I know nothing about childcare, but on my team, there's multiple women that have children, are single mothers. You don't have to have all the answers. You just need to put the right people in contact with each other and be a part of the journey. And so really nothing can hold you back from this other than starting, as Jackie said.
Starting.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Simone.
No, I would say I'll just agree with the two of them, because I had no values in leading in the group, and as a leader in my church, I'm used, to lead and used also to communicate with different cultures. I've learned more now and more open. So practically no barriers, and I'm free to, do work with men and women and children, and no barriers at all.
Here we go. There's no barriers. So just go ahead and start a group, and we cannot wait to see your application in the system. And Jackie actually said it in the chat. I was about to say it as well. I want to shout out all of our women who is leading the work on Welcome Corps in the Department of State, in the CSH team, in the whole consortium, all of the women who have been leading groups, who have been sponsoring, and all of the women who came through the Welcome Corps as refugees since the beginning of the program. Really closing, as we conclude our panel discussion today, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to our panelists for sharing their inspiring stories and insight with us. Their commitment to Refugee Welcoming Initiative is truly commendable and serve as a guiding light for us all. To all our faith-based communities inspired by Dr. Simone's journey and her dedication to the Welcome Corps program, I encourage you to consider how your faith groups can play a vital role in refugee sponsorship efforts. By extending a warm welcome to newcomers, you can embody the value of compassion and hospitality that are central to our beliefs. For our fellow veterans, inspired by Malia's remarkable service and her advocacy with Sisters of Service, I argue to explore opportunities to support refugee veterans and their families. Your unique experience can provide invaluable support for those navigating the challenges of resettlement. And to our philanthropic partners, inspired by Barbara's tireless advocacy and her work with the Shapiro Foundation, I invite you to join us in amplifying Refugee Resettlement Initiative. Your generosity and resources can make tangible difference in the life of displaced individuals, offering them hope and opportunity in their new communities. To our governments and non-government partners inspired by Jackie's leadership and her work with the Welcome Corps, I encourage you to explore opportunities for collaboration and advocacy in Refugee Private Sponsorship Initiative. By working together, we can leverage our collective resources and expertise to create more effective and sustainable solution for refugee resettlement. Together, let's answer the call to action and stand in solidarity with refugees around the world. I really want to thank you again to our panelists and all who are joining us today. Together, we can create a more welcoming and inclusive world for everyone. Happy International Women's Day. And also, by the way, in the Middle East and somewhere around the world, today is also Mother Day, which is a really special day for us, as I am celebrating it with my mom in town. So really exciting. Happy International Women's Day and happy Mother's Day to those who are celebrating it, and have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.